Have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror and felt like a stranger? Not the surface reflection, the face, the hairstyle, the eyes tired from scrolling too long or sleeping too little. No, I mean the part of you that flinches when someone praises you, the part that secretly hates when others succeed, the part that quietly whispers, "You'll never be enough." You don't show that part. You never do. Because you were taught not to. We all were. When you were 5, you were told not to cry. At 10. You were told not to talk back. At 15. You were told not to be too dramatic. At 20. You stopped telling people how you really felt. And eventually, you stopped telling yourself. This is where the shadow begins. Not in some haunted place, but in your earliest memory of shame. It starts small. A piece of you that got pushed down, unloved, unwanted, but still there, waiting. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the thing a person has no wish to be. It is everything you've rejected, denied, ignored, or tried to erase, not because it was evil, but because it was inconvenient. Too emotional, too angry, too ambitious, too sexual, too. You, the shadow, isn't evil. It's human. But when we don't look at it, when we pretend it's not there, it begins to live us. Instead of us living it. It becomes the sharp tongue in your arguments, the jealousy you can't explain. The rage you feel at people who push your buttons, the depression that hits with no warning. That's your shadow, not trying to destroy you, but trying to be seen. Let me tell you a story. His name was Daniel. Mid-40s, successful, family man, nice job, big house, charitable, calm. Too calm. Until one day, at his daughter's soccer game, a referee made a bad call, and Daniel snapped. He screamed so hard that parents backed away. His daughter cried, and the clip of his outburst went viral online. He was humiliated, lost his job, and in therapy, he kept saying the same thing. That wasn't me. I don't know what came over me. But the truth was. It was him. It was the part he buried for 30 years. The anger he never processed from a violent father. The pain he silenced to be a good man. The shadow that finally broke through the mask. Carl Jung once said, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." Daniel didn't explode because he was weak. He exploded because he had never been taught how to safely bleed. You see, society teaches us how to perform, but it never teaches us how to feel. And so we smile when we're broken. We laugh when we want to scream. We go silent when something inside is begging to be heard. But here's the thing. What we suppress does not disappear. It waits. In dreams. In addictions. In arguments with the people we love. In patterns we can't break. And then one day, it crashes through. So what do? We look, not to punish ourselves, but to free ourselves. Shadow work, as Jung called it, is the most courageous act of your life. It's not about digging through your trauma with a shovel. It's about shining a light in the corner of the room you were afraid to enter. And when you do, something strange happens. You don't just see the ugliness. You see the gold hidden in the mud. Because what if the part of you that sabotages your success is also the part that carries your boldness? What if your fear of being alone is also the key to your creativity? What if the anger you are taught to suppress is the same fire that could protect your boundaries? What if your shadow isn't your enemy? What if it's your missing piece? In the coming episodes, we'll walk this path together. We'll explore the shadow not as something dark and scary, but as something honest and healing. We'll ask hard questions, face forgotten parts, break generational silence, and maybe, just maybe, we'll become someone whole. But for now, I have one question for you. What part of you are you most afraid for the world to see? Write it down, say it out loud, and don't look away. Imagine your mind is a great cathedral, each thought you've had, each memory, belief, fear, and desire. A stained glass window, the light of consciousness shines through, painting colors across the walls of your life. But there are rooms in that cathedral that you never walk into. Rooms sealed shut, rooms where no light enters. That is where your shadow lives. Carl Gustav Jung was one of the few men in modern history who dared to walk into those rooms, not just in himself, but in all of us. Born in 1875. Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist. At first, he followed Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. They were close for a time, but eventually Jung broke away. Why? Because Freud saw the unconscious as a dark vault of repressed desires. Jung saw it as a mirror, reflecting not just our shame, but also our potential. Jung believed that inside each of us were two worlds: the conscious ego, the you that goes to work, orders coffee, checks Instagram; the unconscious psyche, the deep ocean below, full of forgotten truths. And in that second world, the shadow waits. So what is the shadow, really? It's not just your dark side, it's every part of you that didn't fit the mask you were taught to wear. As children, we learn fast. Certain feelings get rewarded, others get rejected. Be quiet equals good. Be loud equals bad. Be nice equals loved. Be angry equals punished. So we split. We create a persona, a mask for the world, and we bury the rest in the dark. That's the shadow. It can include emotions, anger, jealousy, sadness, desires, sexual, power, freedom traits, selfishness, boldness, rebelliousness, talents, leadership, creativity, even joy. If they were rejected, yes. Even our gifts can be shoved into the shadow if they weren't safe to express. Jung sighed. The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality. It requires considerable effort to become conscious of it. Translation: facing your shadow isn't about finding out you're secretly bad. It's about finding out you're bigger than the story you've been told. Let's use a metaphor Jung loved. The shadow is like the moon. You only see one side. The other is in darkness. But both sides belong to the same moon. Same with you. Your public face isn't false. It's just incomplete. Let's meet two real shadows in everyday life. Emily grew up in a household where conflict meant punishment. She learned to avoid tension at all costs. So as an adult, she's sweet, helpful, agreeable. But deep inside, she feels invisible. In therapy, she uncovers something terrifying to her. She resents people. She's angry. She secretly dreams of telling people to leave her alone. She thought that meant she was broken. But in truth, her shadow wasn't evil. It just carried the voice she'd lost, the voice that says no. Marcus was taught that real men don't cry. So he worked, provided, led, but his relationships kept falling apart. His partners called him emotionally dead. He didn't understand until a dream came one night. He was trying to hold back a flood, but water burst through and swallowed him whole. He woke up in tears for the first time in 20 years. His shadow wasn't weakness. It was grief. Unfelt. Unprocessed. Still waiting. That's the power of Jung's work. He didn't demonize the unconscious. He believed healing was possible, not by cutting out parts of ourselves, but by reclaiming them. Shadow work isn't about making you someone new. It's about making you whole. And here's the most shocking part. Your shadow isn't just personal. It's collective. Jung believed there are archetypes, universal patterns. In the psyche. The shadow is one of them. But so is the hero, the trickster. The mother. The wise old man, the outcast. They show up in myths, Dreams, movies, religions, because they live inside all of us. That's why we're drawn to stories. They remind us who we are, even the parts we forget. So when you see someone you hate on TV, when you judge a friend's flaw intensely, when you overreact to a small thing, ask yourself, is that them? Or is that my shadow calling me from the mirror? Carl Jung didn't just give us theories. He gave us a map, a flashlight, a permission slip to explore the parts we were told to hide. And he left us with this: I'd rather be whole than good. Think about that. Would you rather be polite or powerful? Would you rather be accepted or authentic? Next, we'll talk about what happens when you don't meet your shadow. Because whether you see it or not, it sees you. You don't have to. Believe in the shadow to run your life. Because the shadow doesn't wait for your permission. It acts through reflex, through repetition, through reaction, like a ghost that wears your face. Have you ever overreacted to something small? Sighed, I don't know why I'm like this? Pushed away something you wanted? Repeated the same toxic pattern, even when you knew better? That's not weakness. That's your unconscious running the show. That's the shadow. With the steering wheel, Carl Jung warned us. The shadow is a tight passage, a narrow door, whose painful constriction no one is spared who goes down to the deep well. He wasn't being poetic. He was being honest. Because the shadow won't knock. It'll kick the door down. When you ignore it long enough, let's break this down. Here are 4 common ways the shadow controls your life, without you ever realizing it. You hate how loud she is. You despise his arrogance. You can't stand people who need attention. But what if ... you're projecting? Projection is when you unconsciously see in others what you refuse to accept in yourself. You don't hate their ego. You hate that you're not allowed to express yours. You don't hate their chaos. You hate that your own life feels rigid, repressed. You don't hate their freedom. You hate your own fear of having none. Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Projection is the shadow's favorite trick. Because it keeps you distracted, you judge them instead of looking inward. You finally get the job, the relationship, the chance. And then you mess it up. You ghost them. You miss the deadline. You accidentally say something you regret. Why? Because the shadow whispers, you don't deserve this. It doesn't hate you. It's just stuck in an old program. If your inner child learned that love equals rejection, then real love feels dangerous. If your parents taught you that success equals arrogance, then success feels shameful. So you sabotage, not because you want to fail, but because a hidden part of you believes it's safer to. You say, I'm fine. You smile. You stay productive. You avoid conflict. But at night, you can't sleep. Or you binge. Or you scroll for hours, not knowing why you feel so hollow. This is the shadow of repression. Feelings you never allowed. Grief, rage, lust, neediness, pride, envy. They don't die. They get stored. And your body becomes a vault. But even vaults crack eventually. Shadow work means cracking open, not to break, but to finally breathe. Different job. Same burnout, not different lover. Same betrayal, different year. Same emptiness. Patterns aren't coincidence. They're unconscious loops, repeating until you bring them to light. Jung's most famous quote, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. You don't attract these patterns because you're cursed. You attract them because your shadow wants to heal, and healing can't happen until the pattern is seen. Let's pause. Take a breath, because maybe this is the first time you're seeing the shadow, not as a monster, but as a memory. As a message. Now, Let me tell you about Alex, a 38-year-old CEO. Smart, charming, respected. But behind closed doors, his wife said he was cold. His team said he was distant. He said he just felt empty. One night, in a dream, he was trapped in a basement full of crying children. He tried to escape, but they grabbed his legs and pulled him down. He woke up in sweat, and for the first time, he remembered something he hadn't in 25 years. A night his father screamed at him, told him, "Don't be such a baby." So he wasn't, ever again, his shadow. The child who wasn't allowed to feel. The child who became the man who can't connect. Alex didn't heal in one session, but he began. He stopped running, started journaling, started crying, and realizing he didn't die from it. He started becoming real. That's what Jung meant by individuation, the process of becoming whole, not perfect, not polished, whole. Let's be honest, the shadow scares us because we think it will destroy us. But what if? The shadow only wants to set us free. It doesn't scream because it's evil. It screams because it was silenced. It doesn't sabotage to punish you. It sabotages to get your attention. It doesn't want to ruin your life. It wants to be reunited with it. The truth is this: the shadow is not the enemy. Denial is. In part 1.4, we'll explore how to begin this journey. Not with therapy speak, not with shame, but with small, sacred steps that bring you back to yourself. Asterisk, so you've seen the shadow. Maybe for the first time, maybe just a glimpse, but you felt it. That shiver of recognition, that tightening in the chest when truth knocks. Now comes the question, what do I do with it? Here's the truth. You don't fix the shadow. You befriend it. You don't destroy it. You dialogue with it. You don't overpower it. You welcome it home. Shadow work is not an emergency room. It's a slow, sacred walk through forgotten rooms of your soul. And like any journey, you start with one step. Here are 5. Asterisk, you cannot meet your shadow while judging it. You must become the observer, not the critic. Set the intention. I am not here to shame. I am here to understand. This changes everything. You can do this by sitting in silence for 5 minutes each day, lighting a candle before journaling, speaking aloud. You are safe here. Placing your hand over your heart and breathing with kindness. It sounds simple, but to the shadow, it's revolutionary, because most of us never felt safe enough to feel fully. Asterisk, your mind can lie. Your pen won't. Journaling is where you meet the shadow without filters. Try starting with, what am I most ashamed of? When did I first feel like I had to hide part of myself? Who triggers me? And why? What do I envy? What would I do if no one judged me? Don't force answers. Don't polish words. Just write what comes. The shadow speaks in whispers. Let it. Asterisk, every time someone makes you irrationally angry, jealous, disgusted, or unsettled, pause. Ask, is this about them, or is this about something I've disowned in me? Maybe their confidence reminds you of the boldness you suppressed. Maybe their neediness triggers your own buried vulnerability. Maybe their selfishness touches the part of you that always gave too much. Keep a projection log. Note who triggered you and what it may reflect. Soon you'll see. Your shadow wears many masks. Asterisk, the shadow doesn't just show up in daylight. It visits at night. Carl Jung believed dreams were messages from the unconscious, not random, not meaningless, but symbolic clues. Common dream signs of shadow work: being chased, a stranger trying to tell you something; falling into darkness; confronting someone from your past; seeing an animal you feared. Analyze like a textbook. Ask, what emotion did this dream bring? What part of me is trying to speak? You can keep a dream journal by your bed. One sentence can change your life. Asterisk. This is the hardest part. To look at the part of you that you are told is ugly and say, I see you. I accept you. I won't abandon you again. That rage? It protected you when no one else did. That sadness? It held the grief no one allowed you to cry. That jealousy? It reminded you that you want more from life, and that's okay. When you approach your shadow with love, it stops screaming because it's finally being heard. Now, I know this sounds beautiful, but real shadow work isn't romantic. It's messy. You will cry. You will resist. You will want to quit. But you'll also feel something you may not have felt in years. Truth. The truth of your soul. Raw, imperfect, but alive. Let me share one moment from my own journey. There was a day I sat in front of my journal and wrote the words, I hate that I always need validation. I almost tore the page, but then I asked, why? And I remembered a teacher, age 8, mocked me in front of the class. Sighed I was too eager to impress. I never raised my hand again. For 20 years, I wore silence like armor. But inside, I just wanted to be seen. That was my shadow, and writing it didn't fix it. But it freed it, and that's when I realized the shadow doesn't want to be perfect. It just wants to come home. Asterisk. So here's your invitation. Tonight, light a candle, open a journal, and ask, Dear Shadow, what part of me have I forgotten? Then listen. Not with judgment, with wonder. Because the shadow isn't a monster in the dark. It's a piece of you still waiting to be loved. Asterisk. There comes a moment in every healing journey where you stop asking, what's wrong with me? And you start asking, what happened to me? And what did I do to survive it? That's the moment you stop blaming yourself for breaking and start honoring yourself for surviving. That's the moment you meet your shadow, not with fear, but with compassion, because the shadow is not here to shame you. It's here to set you free. Free from what? Let's be honest. You don't need freedom from your job, or your partner, or even your past. You need freedom from the prison of pretending. You've spent years performing, hiding, fitting in, numbing out, and it worked for a while. But then came the anxiety, the burnout, the depression that said, this version of you isn't all of you. And that voice? That was the shadow inviting you home. Carl Jung once wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But you can't become who you truly are while dragging half of yourself behind you in chains. You must turn around, unlock the door, and face the parts you once left behind. And when you do, something happens. You stop apologizing for needing rest, for having needs, for being angry, for feeling deeply. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop begging for crumbs when you were born for fullness. You stop being scared of your power or your pain. You become whole. Let me tell you about Maya. She was 29, a nurse, quiet and kind. Everyone said she was so strong, but inside, she was numb. Every day she gave. Every night she collapsed. She never cried, not once in 6 years, until one day she held a child, dying, and something in her cracked. She sobbed for 2 hours straight, and she said the words that changed her life. I'm tired of being strong. That was the day she stopped hiding. That was the day she met her shadow, and it didn't kill her. It saved her. Jung believed that true freedom doesn't come from becoming perfect, but from integrating all parts of you. He called it individuation. The lifelong journey of becoming your full self. It's not linear. It's not pretty, but it's real. And it leads to a life that's no longer just successful, but meaningful. Because wholeness isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about including what was forgotten. And when you do this, Asterisk, you start creating. From your soul, you start speaking with honesty. You start loving without performance. You stop projecting your wounds onto others. You stop fearing your fire and start using it to build. You start crying, not out of weakness, but out of finally feeling again. This is what freedom feels like. Not a life without darkness, but a life where you know how to walk through it, with eyes open, with a heart brave enough to feel, with hands gentle enough to hold yourself, so if you've made it this far, you're already healing, not because you've solved it all, but because you've stopped running. And that is everything. Asterisk, let this be your truth. I am not broken. I am becoming. I am not weak. I am waking up. I am not too much. I am learning how much of me I've hidden. This is the work, this is the walk. This is the way back to you. And your shadow? It's not your enemy, it's your exiled self, holding the key to your deepest power. Open the door. Let yourself in. Asterisk, now, write a letter to your shadow. Start with, I'm ready to hear you now. I'm sorry I left you behind. What do you want me to remember? Then listen, without rushing, without fixing. Just witness, because that's how the shadow heals. That's how you heal. Asterisk, shadow work is not the end. It is the beginning of becoming your whole self.